And we're back. So this is part 2. That was from a SNL Fallon sketch, if you guys... Never mind. Yeah, we're back. This is going to be part 2 of the chopping sample series, or basically how I chop samples within Ableton Live. In front of me, we have a few different couple controllers. We have the Machine Micro, but we're just going to use the pads on the Micro. You don't have to worry about this side over here. We're running the Ableton script for Machine, so we're basically just using it as a controller. And then on top of that, we have a 25 MIDI keyboard, just a simple keyboard. And then we also have a regular keyboard, or a computer keyboard, that we're going to utilize. So you can use all three of these things to trigger samples within Live, and then I'm going to show you on the screen how I chop samples, or how I cut samples on Live. But we'll just get right into it. So we're going to use the same sample that we used in the previous video. I'll play the sample real quick. Yeah, so that was a sample, some pianos. So what we're going to do first, we're going to actually chop this and put it into Sampler. And Sampler is one of the instruments within Ableton Live. And I'll show you how I do it. So basically, we just double click the wave here. And then we're going to come down here into this area, and then we're going to click Warp. If that comes up, just hit yes. Yeah, and then you just basically warp the track. And what we're going to do is come in down here, and we're going to create warp markers within the waveform. And just for the sake of the pads, as well as maybe the keys and stuff, we're going to make 16 markers. So as you can see, if you look at the actual waveform, you can kind of see where the transients are within the waveform, or basically where the waveform spikes up. So those are certain things. But you can also see where the grid is, and see where certain parts of the sample lie within the grid. But we're going to just go ahead and just use the transients and kind of just make our own slices here. So that's 3. This beginning marker is the first slice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, and 16. That's 16, right? So to create those warp markers, you just double click on this top area. And then we're going to right click, and then we're going to select Slice to New MIDI track. And for create one per slice, we're going to select warp markers. There's a few other choices you can select. And then for the slicing preset, we're going to go down to Sample Chop 1. Now this Sample Chop 1 is not included within Live itself. This is a sampler preset that I created for myself. I'll include it in the description of this video, so you can kind of use it. But basically, all the parameters within it are customized to my liking, basically. So we're going to hit OK. And here is the new MIDI track with all the slices. Let's go ahead and just play it out again. But yeah, and if we come down here, you can see Machine here, or the pads. And the keyboard. and also the regular computer keyboard. And with the regular keyboard, you can hit Z and X to adjust the octaves. And then with the Machine Micro, you just use the knob. It might be different for whatever MIDI controller you're using. And then if we double click it, the selected track within Live, you can kind of come down here and see this is basically what Sampler looks like. And there's different parameters in here that you can adjust just depending on how you want the sample to play out. So we can adjust the attack, the decay, the release, the sustain on the sample. We can also adjust this if you wanted these velocity sensitive. If you're using a velocity sensitive keyboard or a pad, you can adjust the velocity or the sensitivity of the pads. So right now I'm pressing the pads really softly, and then that's really hard. But for the sake of this video, we're just going to keep it at 0. So the velocity's all at 128 basically. And with a computer keyboard, you don't have to worry about it because computer keyboards aren't velocity sensitive. There's a bunch of parameters within Sampler that you can adjust if you wanted to do so. This voices is basically how many voices or kind of note polyphony can be played at one time. So right now it's set to 1 sample can only be played at a time. You can also set this to as many as you want, up to 32. So if you wanted samples to overlap each other, you can do that. If you needed to do any fine tuning, you can go into Sample, and you can basically adjust the start and stop, or start and end points of each sample. So that's slice 2, here's slice 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. And if you needed to do like some really fine tuning, you can just kind of move these markers to the start and stop points of each sample. We're just going to adjust the attack on this a little bit because you can kind of hear that popping in the middle or the beginning of certain samples, like right there. So if you adjust the attack, you can kind of get rid of that a little bit. Okay. So with these slices, with the way they are right now, we can kind of play out the sample or the chops the way we want to. I'll just record something real quick. Okay, and we'll just duplicate that. So these are all the MIDI notes that we just played. If you wanted to quantize all these on the bottom, you can just hit Command A, which selects all of them. Right click and then hit Quantize if you wanted to, and it'll basically snap them to whatever grid they're at. But we're not going to quantize today. And what we can actually do now is duplicate the track. And we'll get rid of this. And come down and we can kind of play stuff over what we just played. You can do it within the same track if you just hit this plus button at the top. And then you can kind of play over existing samples. But what we're going to do is we're going to maybe pitch this up a full octave. So plus 12. And then play some stuff over what we just played. We'll just play around with it. something weird like that. Let's go ahead and record that. That was terrible. But yeah, you know, you kind of get the idea. You can also use the pads up here if you wanted to, or the keys up here, or the keys down here. So it's just up to you. So that's one way to chop it, using sampler, and you can kind of adjust everything that you want. You can also add effects to this, like if we wanted like a delay or say like a reverb to this, we can do that. But yeah, that's just one way. Whatever you basically adjust down here into the sampler is it affects all the samples, like are basically all the pads. So if you transpose this up or down, it'll affect all the pads. So let's do it a different way, basically, and I'll show you how to do this within like the built-in or the drum rack, and it basically slices it into a drum rack, basically. We're just gonna go ahead and delete all these. So that was one way. We'll go back a little bit, and we're back to creating the warp markers, basically. So say we created the same chop points in the warp markers. What you can do is you can right click and go to slice to new MIDI, warp markers again, for create one slice per warp marker. And the slicing preset we're actually going to use built in, and we're going to hit OK. And here it is again. And we'll just delete that. Oops. But if we come down here, see, it's no longer sampler. It's basically like an instrument rack with some different stuff within it. So it has this drum rack kind of layout right here, and then just to the left of it, these are basically macros that are connected to certain aspects within this sample or this instrument rack. So right here, see, we have a few different things. We have chains of the sample, and each slice here, you can adjust. You can adjust what you want. Say if you wanted to have this slice be louder than the rest of the slices. See? Say if you wanted this one to be louder. And if you can see in this area right here, you can see how it's moving around, or the volumes changed within between the samples. So we'll just put that all back to what it was. Whoops, maybe that was at -12. Oops, too far back. So anything that we adjust over here in the macros will affect all the pads or all the samples. So if we do the attack, even the release, even the sustain, the decay, whatever. But anything that we adjust over here in simpler will just affect that one pad and not all the pads. So if we wanted to, say, like transpose this first sample down, it'll transpose it down one semitone, but the other ones will stay at 0. So the way, if you wanted to, say, transpose them all down, say we transpose the first one down to -2, and then the rest are at 0, what you can do is right-click it after you've put it to -2, and then copy value to siblings right here, and it selects all the 15 pads. So go ahead and select that. And now when we play the pads, they're all at -2. let's just undo all that. Make sure this is all at 0. Same with here. Say if you adjusted the volume on slice 1, you can right click and copy to all the, see the value changed in all the tracks, or all the chops basically. So this is good. Like, it's a little bit similar to Sampler within Live, but this is good if you wanted to add effects to just one of the chops instead of everything. So in the previous method, we could add effects to everything overall, like we do right here. So we just added reverb to everything, basically. Or you can just add it to one of the slices. So these are the ones without it, and then this one has a reverb on it. So this is good if you want to add effects or add different things to individual slices rather than all the slices. But I don't really use this method too often. Maybe once in a while, maybe when I'm making programming drums. But yeah, that was another way. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things you can do within this as well. So we'll go back again, and I'll show you Sampler here, or Simpler, sorry. They're all kind of weirdly named. So here's Simpler. We're just going to go ahead and take it and drag it into our session. And there's nothing in there right now, so it's looking for a sample. What you can do is drag the wave or the audio file into Simpler like this. So here it is into Simpler. But now that when we play it, see, it's just basically playing it like a keyboard. But what we can do within Simpler is come down and select Slice. And what it does automatically is it puts these lines, basically, they're basically slices. And it kind of it auto chops it basically for you. And the way it does it, it finds transients within the waveform, and then it'll create those slices automatically. What you can do is adjust the sensitivity of this like that, kind of like that. Bring it down. And you can move these things around too. See? See, it's just like another way of chopping it. More of like an auto chop way of doing it. And then you can adjust whatever you want down here as well. And that affects all the chops basically. So with this method, it made, I don't even know how many chops it made. It made 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20, 23. Just depending on how you adjust the sensitivity on this. See. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like 3 different methods that you can use utilizing MIDI controllers of basically how I kind of chop. I mainly use the first method when I'm doing this, especially with just like a generic or regular MIDI controller, or even on the keyboard like this, a computer keyboard. I'm going to cut the video here actually, because I want to do a separate video of how I chop stuff using Ableton Push. I'm using Ableton Push 2 now, and the way I kind of chop on that. It's a little similar, but it's a little different because it's a dedicated controller. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'll post up the third one pretty soon, part 3 of this. I didn't want to make this video extremely long. I can really go into the nitty gritty of this, but that's just like a basic way of how to chop samples, and then utilize like pads or a MIDI keyboard or just a regular computer keyboard to trigger those samples.